There were 6 checkout lanes open. 3 had lines that curled around into the snack aisle, and one had a screaming toddler with a neon blue sucker stuck in her hair. I picked lane 5, quiet, fast-moving, no distractions. I wasn't supposed to be there. Not at that time. Not on that side of town. I only came because my coworker borrowed my lunchbox and never gave it back. That was the reason, my missing lunchbox. That's why I was standing in line at Candle Ridge Mall, holding a single bottle of ginger ale and a frozen dinner. And that's when I saw her. I recognized the back of her head before I recognized her face. That slow, careless way she adjusted her hair. The way she always did when she was irritated or bored. The way she shifted her weight from one leg to the other. The giant tote bag that once sat by our front door, now cradling a stuffed giraffe and a half-empty bottle of formula. Merrily, she was standing 2 lanes down. Not alone. There was a stroller. A man with her. Tall. Chiseled. Clean polo. Didn't look like someone who ever bought discount ginger ale or ate alone. She laughed at something he said. This soft, easy laugh that somehow hadn't aged a day. That laugh used to echo down our hallway. Now it just stabbed. I almost left. I should have. I almost dropped the ginger ale, turned around, and disappeared back into the parking lot. But I didn't. Instead, I watched her. Not in a creepy way. I just froze. Like a glitching robot in a broken simulation. And that's when it happened. She turned and saw me. She froze. Her mouth stayed slightly open, like she'd been about to say something. Like the words got jammed in her throat. Like her body didn't know what to do. She didn't say hi. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. She just stared, like I was some impossible thing her brain couldn't process. And I did the pettiest thing I've ever done in my life. I smiled. Just a small, polite smile. The kind you give a cashier or a stranger who holds the elevator door. That kind of smile. And then I turned and walked away. I left the ginger ale and frozen dinner behind. Walked right past the toddler with the sucker in her hair. Right past the guy selling massage chairs. Right through the food court, ignoring the smell of fake teriyaki chicken and fried dough. When I reached the parking lot, my hands were shaking. 2 years. 2 whole years. And she had no idea what I'd become. Not yet. But she would. The thing is, and I say this with no pride, I wasn't someone you'd freeze for. Not back then. When Merrily left me, I was a shadow of a man. Not in a dramatic, poetic way. I mean literally. I'd sit on the couch for hours, unmoving, not watching anything, just staring. I wasn't even sad at first. I was stunned. Like someone had unplugged me and forgot to reboot. She didn't scream when she left. There were no fights. Just a sentence, short and soft, like she was discussing the weather. I don't love you anymore. She said it while folding laundry. I remember staring at a red sock in her hand and thinking how ridiculous it was to break a marriage mid-sock. Then she mentioned Jeremy. Said his name like I was supposed to be familiar, as if she was referencing someone from the office or an old friend. But he wasn't a friend. He was the reason she started wearing mascara again. The reason she got too tired for date nights. The reason she started saying things like, "You wouldn't understand," even when I wasn't asking anything. Jeremy, the IT guy at her job. Married, of course. 2 kids. That didn't seem to stop either of them. She moved out 3 days after the sock incident. No yelling. No pleading. She left me the dining table and a note that said, "Try to take care of yourself." As if I hadn't been taking care of her for 6 years. I lost 14 pounds that month. I didn't even notice until my belt loop ran out of notches. I slept on the left side of the bed for another 3 weeks, just out of muscle memory. I didn't cry, though. Not right away. I just kept hoping every ring of the phone would be her calling to say she made a mistake. But the call never came. What did come were rumors. A friend of a friend saw her with him at a pumpkin patch. Someone else mentioned she was already living with him part-time. And then, the photo. Someone from her old Pilates class tagged her on Facebook. She was showing off a baby bump. New beginnings. The caption read, complete with 2 heart emojis and a sun. I didn't eat for 2 days after that. I lay in bed with a blanket over my head like a kid pretending monsters didn't exist. And in that moment, I wasn't angry. I was humiliated. She hadn't just left me. She'd replaced me. Fast. Like I was a cracked phone screen. Disposable. Forgotten. Even updated. And no, I didn't go to the gym, or get a new haircut, or find myself. I wasn't that guy. I wallowed. I spiraled. I argued with the walls and cried into a pizza box once. I sent texts I shouldn't have. One night, I left a voicemail where I literally begged her to call back, and then I threw up in the kitchen sink 5 minutes later. Pathetic, I know, but here's the part that matters. I didn't stay there. Something changed 6 months after she vanished. Not overnight. Not dramatically. Quietly. Slowly. It started with a phone call from my landlord. Apparently, someone anonymously paid off 3 months of my rent. No one ever confessed, but I had my suspicions. And I don't mean merrily. She was long gone, living her better life. No, I think it was my older sister, who'd barely spoken to me since the wedding. Maybe she heard I was falling apart. Maybe she just didn't want my failure to become a family embarrassment. Either way, the pressure lifted for a moment. And I used that breath to do something small. I got out of the house. I applied for a new job, not because I wanted to work, but because I couldn't stand another Tuesday sitting in sweatpants watching infomercials. And then, life happened. Not great life. Not magical life. Just life. Until 2 years later, I was standing in that mall checkout line, and merrily, the woman who shattered me, turned and saw a version of me she hadn't expected. And that moment, that freeze, that was just the beginning. After she left, I didn't become mysterious. I didn't go silent like some stoic movie character and emerge with a six-pack and a sports car. No, I became the punchline in conversations I wasn't even invited to. I know because people talk, and in Springfield, everything eventually gets back to you. Marilee didn't just leave me for Jeremy. She made sure people knew why she left. He just wasn't ambitious, I heard once, from a woman who used to be her friend and somehow thought I'd appreciate the honesty. He was more like a roommate than a partner. Sweet guy, but kinda invisible. Invisible. That word stuck. I started hearing it in my own head when I looked in the mirror. I'd never been flashy. I wasn't the guy who told loud stories at bars or made friends with waiters. But I thought I mattered. I thought being kind, stable, and loyal actually meant something. Apparently, it just made me forgettable. After that, I stopped showing up to places where people might recognize me. I skipped our mutual friends' parties. I stopped going to the church where we got married. I changed my coffee shop, my grocery store, my routine. Not because I hated those places, but because I hated the person I was in them. It's strange how much space someone can occupy without physically being there. Marilee was gone, but her ghost haunted my fridge magnets, my throw pillows, my Spotify playlists. Even the way I folded laundry was a habit I learned from her. Then came the day I stopped folding laundry altogether. I just let it pile up in the basket like some symbol of surrender. I quit my job next. Told my boss I was moving out of town. He didn't ask where. I think he was relieved. I'd been showing up late, missing deadlines, staring out the window during safety drills. Truth is, I didn't move right away. I just vanished. I stopped posting on Facebook, deleted Instagram, let my phone battery die, and didn't charge it for 3 days. My mom filed a missing person report. That part one still feel bad about. But I needed silence. I needed the world to forget me before I could figure out whether I even existed outside of her shadow. It took 7 months. 7 full months of drifting. Motel beds. Waffle House breakfasts. Changing my last name on job applications. Telling strangers my name was Drew. Or Elliot. Or Tanner. It didn't matter who I was, because I didn't have to be him anymore. The guy who got left. The guy who got traded in for a gym membership and a newer smile. But something shifted in me one night while working as a night clerk at a roadside in outside Omaha. A woman checked in. Mid-30s, tired eyes, polite. She asked if I had any extra coffee packets. I handed her 2, and she smiled and said, "You're a lifesaver." I don't know why that line hit so hard, but I stared at the desk long after she left and realized no one had said anything kind to me in months. Not since before the divorce. Not since before I became the guy who got dumped and didn't take it well. That same night, I picked up a pen and started writing. Not a journal. Not poetry. Just facts. Names. Mistakes. What I'd learned. What I'd let happen. What I refused to tolerate again. I didn't plan revenge. Not yet. But for the first time, I started remembering what it felt like to be a person. My own person. Fast forward almost a year, and that's who Marilee saw at the mall. Not a ghost. Not her ex-husband. Not the man she left in a puddle of takeout containers and guilt. She saw someone she didn't recognize. And what happened next? Well, it was subtle, but deliberate. I didn't confront her. I didn't yell. I invited something else into the picture. Something that would unravel her perfect little world one polite smile at a time. And I knew exactly where to start. Let me explain something about polite revenge. It's not loud. It doesn't come with fireworks or confession videos or dramatic courtroom scenes. Real revenge, the kind that actually stings, is served so quietly that the person on the receiving end doesn't even realize it's happening until the world around them starts to tilt sideways. I didn't go home that night after seeing Marilee at the mall. I didn't rage drive across the county or cry in the parking lot like the version of me she remembered. I went to a diner on the outskirts of town, the Red Spoon, a place with sticky menus and the best sour cherry pie in 5 states. I ordered coffee. Black. I stared at the wall. And then I opened a private note on my phone. A list I hadn't looked at in nearly a year. At the top it said, things she took without asking. It wasn't about furniture or socks. It wasn't about the blender or the dog she left behind. It was about things I hadn't realized were stolen until too late. Confidence. Trust. My voice in a room. The way I used to be able to fall asleep without picturing someone else's hands on my wife's back. I scrolled all the way down and added a new line. The version of me that didn't care who was watching, because I was done hiding. I pulled up her name on Facebook. Yes, I reactivated it for 5 minutes and looked through her recent posts. Family selfies. Brunches. Her and Jeremy with their baby, whose name I won't mention here because the kid's not at fault. But Jeremy? Oh, he was exactly the guy I remembered. Stupid sunglasses. Backward baseball cap. Holding the child like he just discovered what babies were for. There was one post that caught my eye. A fundraiser. Jeremy's brother was starting a new business. A family-owned property staging company. They were raising money online, trying to go full-time. And there, buried in the comments, was Marilee, tagging her friends and hyping it up. These guys are amazing. They staged our home before the baby was born. Pure magic. Highly recommend. Something twisted in my chest. Their home. Their baby. Their magic. I stared at her profile picture, and I swear I saw something she couldn't. The cracks. She looked happy, sure. But she didn't look light. Not the way she used to when we'd go to flea markets and she'd laugh at everything. Not the way she used to get excited about old records and thrift shop mugs. Now, she looked curated. Composed. She was building a narrative. She was shaping an image. Which meant one thing. She had something to protect. That was the crack I needed. And before you say anything, no, I didn't plan to ruin her life. I didn't want to destroy her or drag her name through the mud. I just wanted to move one domino. Just one. Something small. Quiet. But just enough to rattle her polished little world. So, I contacted Jeremy's brother. Not as Emory. As a potential investor. I used my middle name, a fake Gmail, and a polite tone. Told him I was looking to support local businesses. That I liked what I saw on the campaign page. Asked a few questions. Set up a meeting. Virtual, of course. He was thrilled. Told me they were trying to lock down a deal with a real estate firm upstate, but needed a bit more capital to meet the staging demands. Gave me names. Contacts. People I could verify with. And that's when I saw it. Marilee's name listed as a volunteer consultant on their branding strategy. Not legally, not officially, but enough that she was attached. Enough that if something got shaken, she'd feel it. And me? I was the wind. But here's the thing I didn't expect. That first message I sent? It didn't just open a door into their lives. It opened a door into mine. Because while I was busy planning a subtle shift in their foundation, someone else was already watching me. Quietly. Patiently. Like they'd been waiting for the right moment. And they were about to knock. The message came 3 days after my investor call with Jeremy's brother. I hadn't even followed up yet. I was letting it simmer, letting the curiosity grow, letting them wonder if I was real. Because sometimes, the silence does more damage than the strike. But while I was fine-tuning the next move, something unexpected slipped into my inbox. At first, I thought it was spam. The email subject line read, "You don't know me, but I know her." No greeting. No fluff. Just that. I almost deleted it without opening. But something about the lowercase her made my stomach twist. Like it wasn't just a name. Like it was a problem. The message was short. 5 lines. "You were married to Marilee, right? I saw your name on a Zoom invite last week. Recognized the voice. I have something you might want to see. I don't want anything in return. But she's not who you think she is. Not even now." There was no signature. No attached file. Just a single link, Google Drive. Shared anonymously. I shouldn't have clicked it. I know that. But curiosity makes fools of even the most cautious people, and I wasn't exactly cautious anymore. I was past the point of playing safe. I opened it. Inside the folder were two things, a screenshot and a voice memo. The screenshot was from a text thread. Not Marilee's, but someone texting her. It was blurry, like it had been taken in a rush, maybe secretly. But I could make out just enough. You said he'd never come back. Now he's in the same city? And her reply? Relax. He's nobody. Still spineless. I saw him. He smiled and walked off. Typical. My ears buzzed. I reread it 5 times. Not because I didn't believe it, but because part of me did. Because that sounded exactly like her. That effortless way she dismissed people. The way she weaponized calmness. And yet, it still broke something. I hadn't confronted her. I hadn't caused a scene. I had walked away. And she still turned that moment into something small. Something pathetic. But the voice memo? That's what really pulled the rug out from under me. It was a recording of a conversation. Not crystal clear, but enough. I could hear Marilee. Laughing. Casual. Talking to someone about a situation that might blow up if a certain thing from the past resurfaced. I don't know if it was Jeremy on the other end or someone else. But what she said next, it flipped a switch in me I didn't know I still had. Worst case, I spin it like he's obsessed. He's bitter. People eat that up. Sad ex-husbands are basically memes now. I sat there in my apartment, the lights off, just staring at the blinking play bar of that audio clip. I'd stopped shaking. No more nausea. No more pacing. I just stared. She was already preparing to play the victim. I hadn't done anything, and she was preparing. That's when I realized something important. Maybe even more important than revenge. She was scared. She was scared of me. Not because I was dangerous. Not because I was loud or dramatic. But because I knew too much. Because she didn't know how much of the real Marilee I remembered. And if someone ever dug too deep, she'd lose the little empire she'd built. The curated life. The image. The illusion. She didn't know who sent me that email. But someone did. And whoever it was, they were close enough to hear her talk like that. To capture it. To want me to know. I thought I was working alone. But now I wasn't so sure. So I wrote back. One line. Who are you? The reply came within minutes. Let's just say I'm someone who lost something too. And attached to that, a photo. Marilee. And someone else. Someone I recognized. Someone who shouldn't have been anywhere near her life. And suddenly, this wasn't just about me anymore. The photo wasn't high resolution, but I knew exactly where it was taken. The playground near Carroll Creek Park. The one Marilee used to say was too loud, too sticky, too chaotic. I used to joke that it was a metaphor for how she saw children. But now, there she was, in that very same park, sitting on a bench, smiling. Not at Jeremy. Not at the baby. But at a woman. And that woman was Lorna. Now, I don't expect anyone to remember a name like that. But Lorna mattered. She mattered a lot. She was Marilee's old co-worker. And I use co-worker loosely because back then, they were more like shadow sisters. Lorna worked 3 cubicles down, chain smoked behind the building on lunch breaks, and had a reputation for being messy. As in, drama magnet. Fired for taking too many sick days. Accused of leaking internal company emails. The last time I saw her, she was screaming at someone in the company parking lot over a stolen Keurig pod. So why was Marilee smiling at her like they were lifelong friends? And why were they at a playground together with Marilee's child, when 2 years ago, she swore up and down that she'd cut Lorna off for good? I zoomed in. The timestamp on the photo was from 2 weeks ago. That meant Lorna wasn't a coincidence. She was present, active, close. The next day, I took a risk. I replied to the anonymous email again. I said, what does Lorna have to do with this? No reply came. Not for hours. I went to bed that night staring at the ceiling, heart pounding like it used to when I'd hear Marilee's keys in the door and wonder whether she was coming home happy or hostile. At 3:17 a.m., I got a new message. Lorna's the reason I started listening. She told me things I wasn't supposed to hear. Things about you. About the timeline. About the baby. There it was. One word. Enough to blow my chest open. I had never asked for a paternity test. It would have felt insulting back when we were married. Back when I still believed in her. Back when I thought my love was something she'd never trade for convenience or chemistry or whatever Jeremy offered her. But now someone was whispering the one thing I hadn't dared to say out loud. That maybe, just maybe, the baby wasn't his either. My hands were shaking as I opened the attachment. It was a video this time, taken from inside a car. Phone camera, aimed through a windshield. Merrily and Lorna again, talking, pacing. Lorna was doing most of the moving, arms waving, clearly worked up. Merrily looked cornered, defensive. Then she threw her hands up and said something I couldn't hear. The audio was faint, but I caught pieces. We said it was cleaner this way. He wouldn't be able to prove. You said it didn't matter who the father was. My lungs locked. I paused the video and just stared at that frame. You said it didn't matter who the father was. And suddenly, 2 years of confusion snapped into one horrifying realization. There were more layers to this betrayal than I'd ever imagined. She didn't just leave me for Jeremy. She didn't just abandon our marriage. She didn't just replace me. She rewrote the past. She rerouted it, buried details, redirected truth, repackaged everything into something that fit the narrative she needed to keep her new life polished and perfect. But someone else knew. Someone who wanted me to know too. Someone who wasn't just angry, they were motivated. I wrote back, "Why are you sending me this? What do you want?" And the reply came almost instantly this time. One sentence, "Because I want you to finish what you started." I stared at those words for a long time. They burned more than anything Merrily ever said. Because I hadn't started anything. Not yet. But someone clearly believed I had a role to play. And deep down, so did I. Because maybe I wasn't the one who walked away. Maybe I was the one who got erased. And now, I was the glitch in her perfect little system. And I was just getting warmed up. I didn't sleep the night I got that last message. I didn't even try. I just sat at my desk, the glow of the screen lighting up my living room like a stage. Because I want you to finish what you started. The sentence looped in my head, like background noise I couldn't mute. The thing is, I never started anything. I never retaliated. I never posted anything online, never called her out in public, never embarrassed her. I just walked away. I let her build whatever life she wanted and convinced myself I was being noble by not interfering. But that was the lie I told myself to stay quiet. Because the truth? I didn't speak up because I believed no one would care. I believed I didn't matter. Now I knew that wasn't true. Now I had receipts. Now I had her voice, on record, admitting the baby might not even belong to Jeremy. I had images, texts, proof of lies spun so deeply into her world that pulling one thread might unravel it all. But I still hadn't acted. Not yet. Until I got a package. No return address. No note. Just a padded envelope left at my apartment door. Inside, a USB drive. I don't even know how whoever sent it found me. I'd moved twice since the divorce. Changed jobs. Changed email addresses. But somehow, someone traced me and wanted to be sure I couldn't ignore what came next. I plugged it in. A single video file. And the moment it started, my stomach turned to stone. It was a hidden camera recording, clearly filmed inside an office, her office. The logo on the wall confirmed it. Jeremy's brother's staging company. There was Merrily, talking to a client. Fake smiles, confident tone, smooth delivery. Until the client left. Then came Lorna. And what followed was a train wreck of quiet sabotage. Lorna didn't confront her. She questioned her. Softly, strategically. She asked about investors, and contracts, and timing. And Merrily, thinking no one was watching, thinking Lorna was still her ally, spilled it all. She admitted to falsifying the timeline of her move-in with Jeremy. Admitted to changing dates on a few legal documents. Admitted to submitting invoices for staging jobs that had never actually been completed. And the kicker? She admitted she'd forged one of Jeremy's brother's signatures on a tax form. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. She wasn't just dishonest in her personal life. She was dangerously sloppy in business. And the worst part? She knew it. She ended the conversation by saying, "Look, if it ever blows up, I'll say Lorna did it. She's already been fired once for shady stuff. Who do you think they'll believe?" That was it. That was the switch. Not the cheating. Not the betrayal. Not the lies about the baby. That was the moment I realized she hadn't changed. She had scaled. She wasn't rebuilding her life. She was rewriting it with borrowed pens, on stolen paper, signing other people's names along the way. And I finally understood what the stranger meant. It wasn't about revenge. It was about exposure. So, I booked a meeting. No fake name this time. No potential investor nonsense. Just a real appointment, with Jeremy's brother. I wore a clean button-up, shaved, made eye contact. Told him I'd been following the company's progress and had questions about its internal structure. He recognized my name. I saw it in the way his eyes twitched. He tried to play it cool. Said merrily didn't really work there. More of an informal consultant. I nodded, took notes, and then I slid a printed transcript across the table. His fingers stiffened when he saw the words. His name, the fake form, the admission of forgery. I didn't say anything. I just watched. When he finally looked up, he asked the only question that mattered. Why are you showing me this? And I said, because you should know who you're protecting before she decides to blame you, too. I walked out of the office and didn't look back. That same afternoon, she called me. I don't know how she got my number again, but the moment I answered, the tone of her voice said everything. No confidence, no sweetness, no act, just raw panic. Emory, what are you doing? I didn't answer her question. I didn't yell. I didn't ask her why she lied, or why she rewrote history, or why she kept building on broken bones. I just said 4 words. 4 words I'd been waiting 2 years to say. You should be nervous. And then I hung up. She called again. And again. I didn't answer. Because now, for the first time since she left me, she was the one looking over her shoulder. And I was finally walking forward. I didn't know what I expected after I hung up that call. Maybe I thought she'd send a lawyer. Or Jeremy would show up at my door, puffed up with some righteous fury. Maybe I expected threats, tears, rage, something loud and theatrical, something that would prove she still believed she had the upper hand. But what I got was silence. No follow-up calls, no emails, no dramatic messages begging for mercy or demanding answers. Just nothing. It was the quietest kind of collapse. And in its own way, that was the loudest response I could have imagined. Over the next few weeks, I didn't monitor her life. I didn't obsess over her downfall. I didn't need to. Things began unraveling without me lifting another finger. Jeremy's brother distanced himself from the business. Lorna posted a vague, passive-aggressive, some people burn bridges and forget who built them status, which I knew wasn't for me. I never heard directly what happened next at the company, but I did hear whispers. About someone being let go. About talks of legal audits. About a new client who backed out last minute due to internal drama. I didn't care to chase the details. Because for once, I wasn't in it to win. I was just free. And that was enough. I moved again. Not to run, but to begin. I found a little duplex closer to my sister, who'd quietly slipped back into my life with cautious texts and side hugs. We didn't talk about merrily. We didn't need to. She just showed up one Saturday with a screwdriver and helped me build a bookshelf I'd been putting off for months. I got a new job. Not glamorous, but honest. I manage a warehouse now, small team, low stress. I like it. The guys there don't know my history, and I don't offer it. They just know I bring donuts on Fridays and work late when needed. And that's all they need to know. And then, one Sunday afternoon, it happened. I went to the same mall. Not to revisit the scene. It's just where the good shoe store is. And there she was. Merrily. No Jeremy. No stroller. No designer bag or curated outfit. She was sitting alone on a bench near the food court, staring at her phone like she'd just lost something important. Her hair was messier. Her face looked thinner. And when she finally noticed me, she didn't smile. She didn't wave. She didn't even fake confidence. She just stared. And for the first time in my life, she had nothing to say. That was her truest apology. And I didn't need anything else. I nodded politely, the way you nod at someone you once knew, someone who used to mean everything, before they became a stranger. Then I walked past her. Not faster, not triumphantly, just forward. Because the past didn't have teeth anymore. And maybe the saddest, most beautiful part of healing is realizing you don't need revenge when your peace is louder than their chaos ever was.